We all know conditions change as season unfolds. Probably it hasn't rained exactly as you planned when you wrote your budget, or the markets may have moved, or some other factor has changed, which means you've had to make changes to what you're producing or to the timing of what you've planned. This means your budget is in a constant state of flux and should be monitored and updated regularly. We've included a budget monitoring sheet as an example of how you can keep tabs on your budget. However, you may simply decide to update your budget or monitor it in some other way. Whatever you do, it's important that you compare what has actually happened to what you predicted and think about any changes to your planned program you may need to ensure your final position remains okay. Let's look at a budget monitoring sheet we've included in your resources. Here you can see that there are sections for expenditure and that income is at the bottom of the page with a black line for the surplus or deficit, which gives the overall position for each month. Now let's see how this works with the sample budget. We've put the sample budget figures in for each month. Note we've also had to set up the months and the budget figures to match our own budget. Here's where you would enter the actual figures for the month, and then there will be an automatic calculation of the difference between what your predicted figure was and what actually happened. Let's see how this works. Imagine we didn't spend anything on fertilisers in July, or chemicals or seed, but had to spend $15,000 in August. So in August we would enter our $15,000. What we can see is that there is an automatic calculation of the difference between what you predicted you would spend in August and what actually happened. There's a second tab down the bottom here which calculates a percentage variance between rather than the dollar amount of the difference between budget and actual. This is very useful. You can imagine having a difference of actual to budget of $1,000 when the budget was $5,000 is very much more important than having that $1,000 difference when the budget was $100,000. The first would be a variance of 20%, whereas the second would be a variance of 1%. What we can see here on our sheet is where we enter the 15,000, it has automatically calculated the variance between the budget figure and the actual figure, showing that we are 29% above budget estimates. Using percentages means we can compare different items. It's useful if you make a habit of getting an explanation for variances greater than a particular percentage. For example, 10% or some other figure you may choose. This will keep you focused on the important changes rather than worrying about the dollar movements in very large items. Budget monitoring is vital. Make sure you have a process to do it regularly, probably monthly, so you can plan ahead rather than having to mop up when you realise that you're off track financially.